Welcome everybody! Today we're doing 15 fun facts of the AntMan trilogy, so from probably all three of the movies, or however many movies there are. I think there's 3, I'm sorry if I got it wrong. And then stay tuned until the end, because we're going to talk about the next video that I'm going to be doing, and the fun things that we'll be doing on this channel as well, that I kind of forgot that I said I would do, but I want to do it, because it'll just be more fun and more engaging as well. So number 1 is AntMan was born from tragedy. Plenty of superheroes in comic books take up their codenames and costumes due to the appearance of superpowers. It could be an experiment gone wrong, a lab accident, or an exposure to a strange chemical with the emergence of the power that results from any of those incidents. The character in question decides to become a hero or sometimes a villain. That's not the case with original AntMan, Hank Pym. Instead, Hank set out to develop his own superpowers after a tragedy. One version of his origin story features his first wife, Maria Trovoya, a political dissident in her native Hungary. When Maria fell for Hank and married him, she thought his American status might be able to protect her. Instead, she was murdered. Hank decided to grow from that experience and do everything he could do to help people in trouble. And that's when Hank began to experiment with size-changing particles in earnest. The Pym particles gave him the means to become AntMan and later on an adventurer. He is more than one hero. Number 2. He's more than one hero. Maybe it's for the best that the AntMan film kept things relatively simple for the character's first outing, because for a superhero named AntMan, he sure can do a lot of other things besides turning into an ant-sized man. That's why if you want to know AntMan, you have to get to know the other heroes that AntMan, aka Hank Pym, has been in the past, with Hank being a genius and all, he's tweaked his powers a number of times, which has given him skills other than shrinking down to a minuscule size. But also with those new powers, Pym, and as a result, AntMan has inexplicably changed names and costumes in order to become multiple superheroes. Maybe he's just greedy, because we don't see Spider-Man or Iron Man becoming a whole new superhero once they get a new suit or ability. Other hero aliases of AntMan's include Giant Man, which is just AntMan but the opposite, Yellow Jacket, which is just AntMan suffering from schizophrenia, getting a new suit and turning a bit evil, and Goliath, which is really a giant man. It makes little sense, so don't expect the name changes to include in any AntMan sequel. In fact, Yellow Jacket was already used as the alias for Darren Cross, Corey Stoll, Scott Lang's nemesis in the MCU. AntMan, number 3. AntMan is the first legacy character in the MCU. It's not common for characters in comic books to take on new superhero names, or to pass on their old names to a new character. Ms. Marvel is born from an admiration for Captain Marvel. There have been multiple Captain Americas and Spider-Man. When a hero is needed, someone answers the call. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Scott Lang is the first character to keep up the legacy of a previous hero. The second character to do so in the movies is actually his partner, Hope Van Dyne, who takes over the role of Wasp from her mother. Both characters take up their mantles before Steve Rogers passes his Captain America shield on to Sam Wilson. Of course, for fans following the television arm of the MCU, Robbie Reyes took up the mantle of Ghost Rider on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well. Number 4, there is another AntMan. Given that Hank's version of AntMan goes by a lot of other names in the comics, it probably comes as no surprise that others have taken up the mantle as well. In the movies, Pym recruits Scott Lang himself to become the next AntMan. In the comics, Scott makes the decision himself, and so does another character. A S.H.I.E.L.D. agent by the name of Eric O'Grady found one AntMan costume in storage at S.H.I.E.L.D. facility. Eric isn't actually the most heroic of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents and decided to steal the costume. and use it to make his life a little easier. He even planned to use it as a seduction technique because women love heroes, and it didn't work out well for him. Number 5, Hank Pym is the foremost scientist in Marvel Universe. He may be a little cocky, which is he's referred to himself in the past as one of the 5 smartest people on the planet, but unlikely many obnoxious people who say they're smarter than anyone else on the planet. Pym may actually be able to back that up. Out-sciencing Reed Richards and constantly getting in the battles of wits with Tony Stark, Pym is actually regarded by the eternity as the scientist supreme of Earth. Throughout the years, Pym has been a major part of the most Marvel storylines that involve scientists or technology, and he has had a hand in many of the most positive and most catastrophic events in the Marvel Universe with a vast understanding of subatomic physics, robotics, cybernetics, artificial intelligence, and just about everything else. Ant-Man is no Bruce Banner-style scientist that is an expert in one field. He kicks butt at everything. Perhaps all of this has gone to Pym's head as his reputation for brilliance matched by only his reputation as flawed and deeply troubled. The first idea, so this is number 6, the first idea of Ant-Man movie came a long time ago. Way back in 1980, Stan Lee went to New World Pictures with the idea of doing a movie based on Ant-Man. If you aren't familiar, New World was Roger Corman's production company, which means that Ant-Man film would have been low budget. However, Disney was working on Honey, I Shrunk the Kids at the time, which proved similar enough to possibly have played a role in keeping an Ant-Man movie from getting beyond development. Number 7, an Ant-Man movie was reborn years later thanks to an unlikely person. In the year 2000, the Conan O'Brien special, none other than Howard Stern, tried to buy the film rights to Ant-Man from Marvel. Nothing came of that, but later that year, Artisan Entertainment announced that they had a deal with Marvel to co-produce, finance, distribute several films, including an Ant-Man movie. Ant-Man got its first director, so this is number 8, who rose to fame soon thereafter. In 2003, British duo of Edgar Wright and Joe Cornish went to Artisan to pitch on Ant-Man film. Wright actually had the idea of Scott Lang being a burglar who becomes Ant-Man, a concept found in Ant-Man we eventually saw. However, Wright does not think Artisan ever sent their treatment to Marvel. The following year proved huge for Wright. He and Cornish met with Kevin Feige at Marvel to pitch an Ant-Man. Again, also Wright's movie Shaun of the Dead came out. That probably helped. In 2006, it was announced that Wright would direct Ant-Man and co-write the script with Cornish. Number 9, Wright wanted to make something different from his typical fare. Wright broke through in Britain with his spoof-heavy TV show Spaced. Shaun of the Dead stands on its own merits, but it is also a spoof of zombie movies. His next film, 2007's Hot Fuzz, also falls into a spoof territory. However, at the 2006 Comic-Con, Wright made it clear that his Ant-Man would not be a spoof but a straightforward action comedy. He also wanted to include Hank Pym and Scott Lang in his movie. Number 10, the Wright version hung around for a long time. Number 10, sorry. Wright and Cornish worked on their Ant-Man while Wright was busy with what was practically a parallel career. The first draft of the script would be finished in 2008. It was not until January 2011, after Scott Pilgrim vs. the World was released, that he and Cornish got to work on the second draft, which would be finished that April. A third draft quickly followed that year in 2012. Wright shot some test footage shown at the year's Comic-Con. Soon after, Wright's Ant-Man was given a release date of November 6, 2015, and then shooting was delayed so Wright could make The World's End. Number 11, there was possibly only one choice to play Scott Lang. Rumor had it that Paul Rudd and Joseph Gordon-Levitt were up for the lead role in Ant-Man, though Gordon-Levitt dismissed the inclusion of his name as just a rumor. At the time, the talk was that Rudd would be playing Hank Pym, But when he was confirmed for the film, it was in the role of Scott Lang. Considering that Michael Douglas ended up as Hank Pym, that makes sense. Wright had left the project. This is 12. After being at the center of Ant-Man for years, Wright left the film in May of 2014 due to creative differences. Apparently, at one point, Marvel had plans to craft a draft of the screenplay without Wright's involvement, which he reasonably blanched at. As Wright told Screen Geek, suddenly becoming a director for hire on, you're sort of less emotionally invested, and you start to wonder why you're there. Really, most of his production crew left, putting Marvel behind the 8 ball. Number 13. Several directors were considered in the wake of McKay's withdrawal. Still in the need of a director, Marvel considered the likes of David Wayne, Ruben Fleischer, Nicholas Stoller, and Rawson Marshall Thurber. These are all notably comedy directors. In the end, comedy director Peyton Reed got the gig. He had previously helmed films like Bring It On, Down with Love, and Yes Man. Number 13. All the changes cost them some cast. Matt Gerald and Kevin Wiseman had been cast in Wright's version of the film, but their parts were cut in the draft McKay wrote, so they did not end up in the movie. Meanwhile, Patrick Wilson was initially cast as Jim Paxton, the police officer engaged to Scott's ex-wife. However, delays caused by Wright's exit lead to scheduling conflicts or Wilson, so he dropped out and was replaced by Bobby Cannavale. Number 14, Rudd went all in to prepare for the role. Rudd said he took Chris Pratt's approach to get ready to make the movie, which is to eliminate anything fun for a year, and then he could play a hero. Indeed, in addition to training considerably, Rudd restricted his diet. He got in such good shape that they had to alter his Ant-Man's costume to fit his muscles. Stahl, and this is the last one, Stahl didn't get to have the same superhero fun as Rudd. Rudd got to wear an Ant-Man costume when filming, but Stahl did not get to join in on the festivities. Reed realized an actual yellow jacket costume would be way too impractical, so the yellow jacket suit is visual effects. Stahl wore a motion capture suit when filming. Oh darn. Anyways, that is it. So what I was going to do is do fun like movie quote quizzes and movie references and movie reviews. Excuse me. So it's not always about facts. So yeah, those are some 15 facts of Ant-Man. Stay tuned for the next film, which will be more funny references, guessing where they're from, and all of that, and fun and games. Okay, you guys have a great rest of your night. We'll chat soon. Bye now.